Welcome to Simba Information's Inside the Market webinar series, Session 1, Recalibrating in Real Time, How Education Companies are Responding to Policy Shifts. I would like to thank you for attending and introduce myself. I am Martha Sharping, analyst and editor here at Simba, and over the next few minutes, we'll explore how education companies are recalibrating in real time as policy, funding, and workforce dynamics shift around them. This webinar is designed not just to deliver the facts, but to connect those facts to the human side of education, the teachers, administrators, vendors, and families that are navigating these changes every day. My goal is to provide data-driven insights grounded in Simba's research that feel both practical and approachable, leaving you with clarity, confidence, and actionable ideas. I'd like to thank you again before moving into our presentation. Here's today's roadmap. Our agenda will begin by reviewing the 5 cross-currents that have shaped the education market since 2020. Then we'll look at recent federal disruptions and state divergence, followed by trends in student achievement and equity. We'll examine workforce realities and retention strategies, then zoom out to assess broader market signals, where growth is occurring, where resistance is entrenched, and where new demand is surfacing. We'll also share a communications playbook for agile response, highlight vendor strategies, and spotlight vendors from the market, and conclude with outlook scenarios, cost pressures, and takeaways that you can put into practice immediately. Think of this as moving from the big picture down to practical steps. We'll begin by covering cross-currents to begin our market context. Since 2020, education has weathered turbulence at every level. The pandemic accelerated digital adoption and introduced nearly $190 billion in ESSER funding. Now that temporary lifeline has expired, leaving districts to grapple with sharp budget contractions just as demands for accountability and measurable results intensify. At the same time, political polarization has deepened, producing a patchwork of policies that vary sharply by state. This is the backdrop for today's education market, a fragmented, risk-sensitive environment requiring agility from both districts and vendors. These 5 cross-currents define today's market: diverging state policies, retreat of federal oversight, shrinking budgets, politicized curriculum and compliance, and demand for transparency and measurable ROI. Diverging state policies mean what is required in one state may not be required in another, and it may be restricted in another. Federal oversight has weakened, with staff cuts slowing data collection and enforcement. The ESSER cliff is forcing 5 to 8% budget contractions at the state and district level. Curriculum is politicized. DEI rollbacks, AI restrictions, and book challenges now shape procurement. And finally, ROI expectations are non-negotiable. Proof of outcomes, usage dashboards, and measurable benchmarks are now expected. Together, these forces set the terms of participation for everyone in the education sector. State policies, and hone in on a few states and what they are doing. State policy divergence is sharper than ever. Kentucky advanced tenure reforms and DEI rollbacks. Florida repealed tuition access for undocumented students, closing that pathway for many. Texas and Tennessee expanded voucher programs worth over $1 billion, moving public funds from public pre-K-12 education into private education. Meanwhile, California mandated structured literacy and invested heavily in the science of reading programs. For vendors, this means a localized strategy is essential. A product celebrated in California could be restricted in Texas, and flexibility and awareness of state context is critical. We'll move to the retreat of federal oversight. The retreat of federal oversight has reshaped the education landscape. In early 2025, $6.2 billion was withheld from allocations spanning professional development, enrichment, and support programs. By mid-year, $2.5 billion in ESSER extensions were revoked. This impacted over 41 states. In March, 1,300 DOE staff were laid off. This cut civil rights enforcement and data collection capacity by half. The fiscal year 2026 DOE budget proposal calls for a 15% cut and consolidates 18 programs into a block grant. Districts now face weaker oversight and slower data. Vendors must step in with compliance tools, outcome tracking, and adaptable frameworks. Budgets. We'll talk about the ESSER cliff and how it's impacting states nationwide. The ESSER cliff has arrived. Districts face budget contractions, averaging 5 to 8%, with high poverty districts hit hardest. Many have enacted staff cuts or hiring freezes. Procurement is consolidating. Districts are working with fewer vendors but demanding more robust all-in-one solutions. With flexible pricing, pilot-to-scale agreements, and guaranteed ROI now expected. Vendors unable to demonstrate outcomes quickly are losing ground. But they are also being impacted by politicized curriculum and compliance. Curriculum has become a political flashpoint. California mandates structured literacy aligned to the science of reading, while Texas restricts similar approaches. Michigan pilots AI use in classrooms while Florida restricts or bans it. Book challenges exceeded over 10,000 banned titles in the 2023-2024 school year, with DEI rollback spreading across multiple states. This has impacted how states are responding, and vendors must design modular products that can be tailored to diverse political climates. Awareness and flexibility aren't as important as innovation in this context. Why? We have found that districts are now demanding proof of outcome before they will purchase a product or instructional material packet. This transparency and ROI have shifted, in this case, from a differentiator to baseline expectation. Districts now require dashboards with usage data, contracts tied to outcome benchmarks, and proof of impact in every adoption. Vendors are investing in proprietary dashboards and third-party validations to help meet this demand. Clear evidence of impact is the cost of entry into procurement discussions now. To recap, diverging state policies create patchwork compliance. Federal retreat leaves oversight weaker and data slower. Shrinking budgets force consolidation. Politicization increases procurement risks. And ROI expectations now define contracts. Together, these five cross-currents frame the world districts and vendors must navigate. Now we'll move from market forces to workforce realities Having covered the external forces shaping education, it's time to turn inward to the workforce, teachers, staff, administrators, and where these pressures converge. Their experiences highlight how external disruptions translate into day-to-day realities in schools. With workforce pressures before moving into retention models that have been seen to work. Teacher shortages are at a crisis level in the U.S. Federal cuts have removed $2.1 billion in professional development and training programs, and over 900 districts have adopted 4-day weeks to meet this change to the teacher workforce, aiming to retain staff and reduce costs. Nationwide, more than 400,000 uncertified teachers are in classrooms. Procurement priorities reflect this reality. Solutions must reduce teacher burden, offer built-in PD, and integrate seamlessly into existing systems. But what are some retention models that have seen success, that are working in the U.S. teaching field? Despite challenges, effective models do exist. Teaching Matters, for example, demonstrates how embedded coaching supports teacher resilience and instructional quality in the state of New York. Districts using team teaching report attrition dropping from 16% to 6%. Agile implementation through modular PD, rapid onboarding, and flexible pacing has been shown to help schools adapt even with high turnover. Vendors that are aligned with these approaches have gained credibility within districts. So now we'll shift from market signals to market strategies. With workforce realities clear, let's zoom out to the signals shaping procurement. Where are districts growing? Where do we see resistance? And what new demand is emerging? These signals reveal where opportunities lie. Seeing a reduction in teacher availability, teacher training programs, and professional development. Districts are now expanding investment in AI-driven tutors, workforce-aligned pathways, and micro-credentials to meet the needs of its teacher force. Resistance is strongest around DEI programs and non-compliance ready curricula. At the same time, new demand is forming. Districts are asking for localized content, compliance dashboards, and flexible contract models. These signals point to where procurement spending will flow in the near future. This confusing environment. Agile communication is essential. Leading vendors issue rapid policy updates, create adaptive FAQ sheets to address state differences, host region-specific webinars tailored to local concerns, and use social media to reframe disruption as opportunity. These practices build trust and demonstrate responsiveness, reinforcing vendors' roles as proactive partners. We've looked at what districts are demanding. Now let's explore how vendors are responding, how they're adjusting strategies, partnerships, and product design to meet those shifting priorities in real time. Critical for survival in today's fragmented education market. Consider 4 examples of how vendors are adjusting their strategies to meet shifting demands. First, we'll look at Otis and Discovery Education. They've partnered to integrate assessment data and instructional content, giving districts more unified view of student learning and supporting alignment between teaching, practice, and reporting. Stride has expanded its workforce and CTE programs, which drove a 22% growth in revenue, a signal of a strong demand for career-aligned pathways. Coursera scaled its micro-credential offerings, becoming a go-to partner for institutions and districts needing flexible, low-cost upskilling solutions. McGraw-Hill acquired EssayPop, integrating AI-enabled writing scaffolds to expand its digital portfolio and meet demand for personalized learning tools. Taken together, these moves illustrate not just tactical pivots, but a broader pattern. Vendors who innovate quickly, align with policy priorities, and demonstrate ROI are the ones maintaining competitiveness in a volatile environment. Show how companies are adapting to the crosscurrents we've discussed. Discovery Education demonstrates how innovation can remain accessible. Its AR, VR, and AI tools are designed for compatibility with existing devices. This lowers the barriers to adoption in cost-constrained districts. BBC Learning emphasizes inquiry-based pedagogy with a strong literacy focus, balancing student engagement with compliance mandates, such as California's structured literacy requirements. Bloom's highlights how AI can strengthen equity by boosting multilingual family engagement responses by 30%, directly addressing inclusivity gaps while showing measurable ROI. Together, these spotlights illustrate how vendors are combining innovation, alignment, and practicality to succeed in a fragmented market. Now that we have discussed vendors and spotlighted a few of the vendors' strategies and products, we'll move to our market outlook. We'll speak on a few market scenarios and what can be done to meet those changing and updated needs. Looking forward, three scenarios dominate our market outlook. Fragmentation may deepen as states continue to diverge, as more control is moved from the federal level to the state level. Scenario 2, credential ecosystems are expected to expand, with trade schools growing at 6.6% compared to 0.8% for higher education. This just means that we are looking at a force of students that are looking for an ROI. They want to know that the money they are investing in their education will see a return on investment. And this is seen highest for trade schools and those going into the workforce. Scenario 3, cost-driven consolidation is likely as tariffs increase procurement costs by 12 to 18% and delay projects. Districts and vendors must plan for elements of all three scenarios, unfolding simultaneously. Enrollment costs and pressures will impact those scenarios that we discussed. Enrollment and cost pressures continue to shape the market. Pre-K 8 enrollment has fallen 4.5% since 2019, and public enrollment is stabilizing at a lower baseline as families turn to charter schools, and homeschooling. At the same time, districts face higher costs. The Los Angeles United School District reported $4 million more in food service costs in a single year, while facility renovation bids rose 20 to 35%. These pressures constrain budgets and heighten demand for efficiency and bundle vendor solutions. In closing, I would like to touch on just a few takeaways that I would like for you to take away from this discussion. Ways. First, fewer, better solutions will win. Districts are consolidating vendor relationships and seeking stronger partnerships. Second, policy literacy is a competitive advantage. Vendors who anticipate and interpret policy shifts build trust. Third, agile communication transforms disruption into opportunity, positioning companies as proactive partners. And finally, proof of impact is the baseline. Outcome data, dashboards, and ROI evidence are now expected. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and I encourage you to stay connected with Simba Education's report and newsletter coverage for the most reliable insights to guide your strategy in the future. Please let us know if you have any questions or feedback you would like to provide. And as always, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.